From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, real therapists. If you have any questions you'd like to ask or advice you'd like to give, come on over to podtherapy.net and join our conversation. We're back from a week off. Not really a week off. We recorded episode 13, but it was terrible. Completely unusable. And now, broadcasting from Level 9 Studios, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
I love that this is now episode 14, and episode 13 just doesn't exist. And we could have just titled this one episode 13, and that way there would have been consistency. But I appreciate it. Why live the lie? Why live the lie? Call it what it is. Put it in the trash heap of history. But now the people want to know, Nick, what happened while Jim was gone?
But how perfect is it that it's 13 of all numbers?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was thinking about this. So for the listener, Jim, went to Newport Beach, California over last week for my kids' spring break. Had a great time. Made a lot of sandcastles, a lot of fun. And I left Nick in charge of the pod. And
Bad move.
Bad move. Once upon a time, Nick once brought up this conversation of, if we are Simon and what is it?
Simon and Garfunkel.
Simon and Garfunkel. Which one of us is Simon and which one is Garfunkel? And I never knew what the hell he was talking about. But apparently one of them was actually talented. The other one kind of hung out. Yeah, according to Nick. I always enjoyed their work. But I think now we know. Now we know who's Garfunkel, Nick. Because you tried it on your own and you felt it was unusable.
Mm-hmm. Takes a big man to admit when he's wrong.
It does.
And I am not a big man.
You're a giant among men for the failures, so conspicuous. But it's appropriate that episode 13 was the one that just disappears because in Las Vegas, and the listener might not remember this, but we are Las Vegas therapists, Viva Las Vegas, and any hotel you go to, there is no 13th floor. Right. And that's something a lot of people don't know is you go in the elevator, there is no number 13.
I don't think that's a Vegas thing, actually. I think that's a hotel thing. There's a lot of
I think that's a Vegas thing.
No, I've been to hotels in like Chicago.
That don't have a floor 13? Really?
Floor. Yeah.
Well, I'd be interested. If you're out there and you're from somewhere else, tell us the deal. But I know at least in Las Vegas, nobody wants to be on floor 13 because it's associated with being unlucky and it's a freaking casino.
Right.
I don't want to blame all my losses on that floor. So every hotel gets rid of it because people will specifically say, don't put me on the 13th floor. Like it's all the superstition, so they'll just go, yeah, no problem, we won't.
But there still is a 13th floor.
There is, yeah. So
it's not like there's actually a blank. Don't put me on the 14th either.
Yeah, don't put me, yeah. I'm on to your trickery.
I know your little tricks.
So to increase our luck and ensure that nobody that listens to this podcast is less lucky, we have gotten rid of episode 13, so now you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Now, actually, I would like to say that the episode hasn't been completely destroyed.
Yeah, it still
does
exist.
It's in a vault.
Yeah.
And we're willing to sell it for the right price.
Like the Wu-Tang Clan did.
Right.
Yeah. So if you would like to place a bid on Nick's horrible Pod 13 without Jim, and actually our engineer Scott jumped in and tried to bail him out.
Scott was the only saving grace of that episode.
Scott jumped in.
It's actually probably usable because of Scott.
Yeah, so he tried to bail Nick out. But if you would like to bid on it, opening bid, I'm going to say a solid 50 cents. Okay? It's time to make some money on this podcast. So we'll open the bidding at 50 cents, and you can bid on our Facebook page or on our Twitter. So, yeah, go nuts.
Yeah, there we go.
50 cents, I'll sell you the episode. I'll just email it to you. So,
yeah. What will you do with all that money?
Yeah, I'll go buy an ice cream. So we are back, and we've got some awesome questions, some really good stuff that's been written in, and can't wait to get to it. So, Nick, do you mind if I launch with the first one?
Go.
All right, let's do it. The first question is titled, How Can I Learn to Like Myself? Hey, guys. First of all, loving the podcast. Your advice is always so spot on. I think he's talking to me. I think he meant Jim. Yeah. Second of all, if you decide to answer my question, please don't use my name. Thank you.
Jessica, we promise we will not use your name.
I think it's a dude.
No, I think it's a woman.
Okay, so hopefully her name really wasn't Jessica.
I'm 99% sure it wasn't.
Okay, got it. So definitely we will not use your name, Ivanka. All right, so this year I have been involved in a sports club in university, and I've really been enjoying it. Everyone in the club is really nice to me, and I try to be just as friendly to them. The only problem is they're constantly talking about big group events that they've all been to, like going out for drinks or partying. And it's obvious they all hang out together, but they don't invite me. They'll have these conversations right in front of my face with zero awareness that it might bother me, but it leaves me feeling really left out, uncomfortable and awkward. Obviously, I can't force them to want to hang out with me, but it started to make me feel really unwelcome and anxious, even going to the club meetings. I've been to almost every single one since the start of school year, and I'm the only active member who's not been invited. So a lack of attendance isn't the problem. My question is, how can I reframe this shame and rejection so it doesn't hurt so much? I know it's silly, but it's really affecting my confidence and making me feel inherently unlikable. I've tried researching what I could be doing wrong, but all the self-help articles suggest that I must be a self-involved person who doesn't show an interest in people, and I'm just not like that at all. I'm not sure what I can do differently. That doesn't involve actively changing who I am completely. It makes me so self-conscious and upset. I'm done trying to understand what I've done wrong. I just want to find a way to feel okay about myself again. Please help.
I mean, who hasn't been there? I've experienced this too.
Right.
Actually, in college,
When
kind
you
of
were
a
a British
similar
schoolgirl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Back before my life changes.
Back when life was good. But we've all been there. Been part of a club or something. You kind of start realizing that all these folks are meeting and you're not really invited to things. And that is a strike to your confidence quite a bit. But I like actually how you've worded this question, because it almost kind of sounds like your question isn't really geared towards how can I get more active in this. Your question in one of the paragraphs was, how can I reframe this?
Yeah.
That's
good insight.
Absolutely. That's amazing insight.
Yeah.
So what that tells me right there is that you're looking at this, you have a general understanding of kind of the cognitive behavioral theory of, the way that I look at a situation is going to affect how I feel about it and how I behave towards it. So you're looking at reframing this thing. So for the listener, how to reframe, essentially what we're talking about is how to take something and look at it in a completely different context. Looking at it from a perspective that's going to be more helpful and productive and create a better emotional response.
Yes.
I think first off, I think trying to depersonalize some of this. It becomes very easy when you're in a situation like this to take everything as being a reflection of you. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's a reflection of the group. It could be a reflection of a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily have to be pinpointed directly at you.
Right. One of the things that's interesting about that, Nick, is she says it's a sports team, right? And so she's joined it this year, and they probably have a history, especially if you're, a freshman or a sophomore coming into college. And, these are juniors and seniors, folks that have been through some stuff together. They've traveled together. They've gone through ups and downs together. There's a camaraderie. And sometimes in those kinds of situations, you kind of have to earn your right to be a part of that. And for them to reveal it out loud that they do stuff, it could be mean, but I don't detect the writer thinks that way. She just sort of says, no, they're pretty open about it. So it almost appears to be something where it's not an exclusion thing. It's more like you're on the road toward inclusion. Like you're not quite part of this yet, but you're on your way. And one thing I really enjoy about this writer's, tone is she's not buying the presentation of the false idea of herself. She's reading self-help stuff, which, I won't speak for Nick, but for me, I choke on a lot of that. Like, I feel like it has the appearance of psychology without the power of it. And so a lot of it isn't that good. I just feel like it's speculative. But she's rejecting the central premise, which is like a lot of self-help says that I must be self-concerned and obsessed, and people are trying to signal that they're excluding me. And she's kind of saying, no, like I know myself. I'm pretty self-aware. Like I'm actually pretty nice and likable, and this isn't me. So what's going on? And I like that she's challenging that right out of the gate, realizing that's not who I am. And now I'm looking at it and saying, but I am struggling with this, and I am starting to feel, is it me? Am I unlikable? What's going on? So good job at least for having that true self-awareness. I know who I am, but something about me is not being communicated to this group. So my piece of advice that I'll jump in with is sometimes when you feel incongruent, I know who I am, but other people are not catching who I am, and something is disconnecting, I don't want to question so much who you are or who they are. I want to question the perceptions, right?
Right.
What messages do I send, and how can I become self-aware about how I'm communicating myself? How do I send out signals about who I am? And are other people getting those signals accurately? It's a good question to ask.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was kind of thinking the same thing too. I mean, in the situations that I've been in, I know a lot of people who are just kind of quiet and shy, but they don't send the appearance of being quiet or shy. They send the appearance of being stuck up.
Right.
You know, I've known people like that, and I've talked to other people and like, oh, so and so is so stuck up.
They think
and
they're
like,
better than us.
Like, no, they're just quiet. It's
right.
not, you know. So a big part of it is perception. I mean, that's we could argue that's all of it.
Sure,
all of it is just perception.
It's just perception.
And there's probably a lot of little things that happen that you may not be aware of. I've been in that situation where things that I was doing that I wasn't aware that I was doing was sending a message to other people that, well, don't even bother Nick with this. He doesn't seem the type. He doesn't seem like he'd be interested. He doesn't, you know, so we don't even bother even asking, right?
Yes, that's a really good point, Nick. And that actually might be, and we don't have all the data,
right?
But that could be what's happening here. Is the other girls might be saying, "Hey, you know, don't bother inviting her because she's probably the type that would decline, and you know, we don't want to deal with that." And in reality, she's like, "Gosh, I wish they would," but she's too polite and quiet to sort of self-invite, you know, and put herself out there. And so now we're at the standoff. But that's, I think, the answer to the first question. She said, how can I reframe the shame and rejection? I think what I hear Nick and I saying is we invite you to reframe it as this is a perception issue, not an essence issue. This is not they're rejecting me. It's I am sending signals in communication that give them a false impression of my willingness to participate or my eagerness to participate, and they are not, as a group, sending that message back to me.
Right. So how would you address that, Jim? If that were you, how would you do it?
Honestly, my first piece of advice, I would tag one of those girls that I feel the most comfortable with, and I would ask them for some honest feedback. And I've done this with Nick lots of times. We've worked in organizations together, and I'm always trying to like look around and say, hey, am I receiving from other people that I give off the impression of something I don't want to be? And so I've pulled Nick aside before and said, hey, can you give me some honest feedback? Be my mirror for me. You know, check my teeth for broccoli, you know, personality-wise. Am I coming off a certain way? And he'll look at it from an objective point of view and say, you know, Jim, yeah, sure. In this situation, I can see where people got that view of you. I've known you longer. I know you in other capacities, so I know that's not who you are. I have more data to work with than them, but they just get these glimpses of you, and sure, they take this impression away. But having that person to bounce ideas off of and pulling one of those teammates aside and saying, hey, you know, Samantha, can I ask you for some advice for a second? Yeah, sure. What's up? You know, we get along. So listen, sometimes I get the feeling that I'm off-putting or that I'm sending the signal to the team that I'm not interested in being part of the friendship. Is there anything I'm doing or saying that's sending that signal? And that's super helpful because a lot of people appreciate you coming to them with that. They feel honored. They feel respected. And it's very honest, you know, and they tend to want to tell you, actually, yeah, you know, this is what you kind of say or do that, sure, other people like you, but they're not sure if you'd be a part of this.
Right. That'd be good. Absolutely. And, you know, we were talking about this actually ahead of time before recording, and I'm going to credit Scott here with some great feedback.
Yeah.
Scott had the idea, well, why don't you invite them to do something?
Yes, that's a great note.
You know, take the initiative and get involved and say, you know, come up with a plan for the weekend, something you're going to do, and invite, you know, anybody on the team. Hey, you want to come hang out? Let's go do this together. And then that will give you kind of some feedback right there, you know. If some people are like, oh, yeah, okay, that sounds good, then that gives you some comfort right there, knowing that, oh yeah, I was kind of misreading this whole thing. They are interested.
Yeah.
And the other thing too to think about is it might just catch them off guard. They may be in complete shock. And like, oh, well, Sally is asking us to do this. This seems kind of odd. I didn't know she was
actually, and that's a possibility, right? Because it's possible that they just don't like you, and I don't think that's really the best explanation. But in case it is, here's a way to avoid that. Take this idea of inviting them to something, but instead of inviting the whole group in one big announcement, like in the locker room, identify one of them. Pick one of them who seems the most approachable. Ask just that individual, hey, do you want to go out and get some dinner or go grab a movie on Saturday or whatever? And if you can get one of them to buy in, now now you leverage that to get more of them. So then you come approaching and go, hey, me and Becky are going to head to the movies this weekend. Would any of you guys like to come? And now it's not me. You're choosing me. It's I've already got one of you. I've picked off a weak member of the herd. And now I'm sort of tying myself into this too.
Right.
So that's a way to kind of a little bit more neutrally approach that.
Yeah, and a lot of this has to do with approachability.
Yes.
You know, like I know a lot of folks who just are not approachable.
Yeah.
Usually because of things that they can't control and
Right.
are not aware of. Some folks